We're not going to give him a boring introduction this time. Approximately 6 weeks ago, I was out in Southern California visiting with a client. I realized that I was not far from the town of Rancho Santa Margarita and the world headquarters of Toastmasters International. I had a little extra time that morning, paid a visit to world headquarters, and was welcomed with open arms. The receptionist immediately began to organize a personal tour, and soon I was introduced to a trio of wonderful young women, Angela, Marla, and Tony. They guided me through the facility, provided a wealth of facts and figures about the organization, and introduced me to many of the 125 employees and staffers who work hard to keep Toastmasters running smoothly. Everyone I met was very welcoming and very friendly. At the end of the tour, I was back in the lobby. This tall gentleman walked by. He was dressed casually, much more casually than he is tonight. And I was introduced to the CEO of Toastmasters International, Dan Rex. Unfortunately, at that time, I didn't know that I'd be introducing him tonight to you. But during our conversation, when I told him I was from District 13, he stepped back for a minute and he said, "Isn't that Russell Drake in the Steve Templeton's district?" And boy, was I impressed. But perhaps I was more impressed with the level of respect and admiration the staffers displayed towards Mr. Rex. I could see it in their eyes and I could hear it in their voices whenever his name was mentioned or he was in their presence. You see, Dan Rex was one of them, an employee of Toastmasters International for over 23 years. He worked his way up through the organization, leading many different departments and areas before being named Executive Director in 2008 and the additional title of CEO this past August. Now, Mr. Rex is their leader, and the keynote tonight is titled, "The Value of Communications in Teams." And I can tell you from my personal experience, he has built a strong and dedicated team at World Headquarters. But Mr. Rex is also one of us. You may not know that he's the president of his Rancho Beach Masters Toastmasters Club. So please help me welcome to the lectern, Chief Executive Officer of Toastmasters International, and yes, a distinguished Toastmaster, Daniel Rex.
That's a much better introduction than I've ever written for myself. That's fabulous. 4 weeks ago, I was creeping through a dark forest. It was night, a little bit later than this, between 12 and 1 o'clock. The only thing that I could hear was my own breathing and the pounding of my heart. And the only thing that I could see was the little bit that was exposed by a handheld light that I was carrying. I was pursuing a particular type of prey that night, and my wingman was my son Jordan. And periodically, if he was a couple of feet or a few yards away, I could see his light, and it sometimes crossed over mine. We pursued this prey through the forest, across boulder fields, down in crevices, through sand and deep grass, and they ran away. We tried to find them, but they kept backing off, scared by our lights and by our presence. Eventually, we caught one in the open, and we went through our protocol. We paused, we hit it with our lights. My son circled around behind it. I waited until he was in position, and then I rushed him. And I reached out my right hand to pin it to the ground, not to grab it because they're too fast, to pin it to the ground, and as my fingers touched it, I felt it rocket away from me. Now, this particular creature, when it's moving forward, moves very, very slowly. When it's moving backward, it moves so quickly that in the dark, you really can't see it. Well, I was ready to move on to try and find another one, and then I noticed my son Jordan's light flashing. And I turned to him, and I shined my flashlight on his chest. And pinned to his chest was our prey, an 18-inch long, 4.5-pound California lobster. We were 50 feet underwater at Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California. And we were chasing lobsters. And in California, you can't use a tool, you can't use a stick, you can't use a spear gun, you can only use your hands. And I gotta tell you, when you grab them, they're not happy. Now, California lobsters don't have the big claws that many lobsters do, but along the bottom of their tail are a series of hooks. And their primary mode of transport is to flex that tail and shoot backward. And they go fast, and you're just not going to find them again unless they happen to bump into your chest and you just finish it like Jordan did. But if you grab them, they flex that tail, and those hooks go right through your gloves and into your fingers, but it's worth it. Because they taste really, really good. So as you can imagine, there are other things down in the water. Things that came into our lights that night: stingrays, bat rays, a variety of sharks, big crabs, scary ones that you can grab, but I'm not sure I wanted to grab them because they're really big. And worst of all, moray eels, sharp-toothed, nasty-looking creatures that happen to inhabit usually the same crevices that the lobsters do. And there are times when you see a lobster in a crevice and you're reaching for it, and your buddy grabs your arm and pulls it back out because he's seen an eel that you haven't. And if that eel happened to get connected to your arm through your wetsuit, you go right through it and tear into your flesh. The lobsters live in kelp beds. Kelp is an aquatic plant. It grows from the bottom, from the surface, or from the surface of the sand, all the way up to the top. And whether it's 20 feet or 40 feet or 80 feet, this plant goes that entire distance. And it's about as big around as my thumb. A rubbery sort of plant that's hollow. And somehow it absorbs oxygen from the water and it floats. The unfortunate thing about kelp is that it's somehow magnetically attracted to divers. And when you're literally crawling around in the kelp through the rocks, searching for these lobsters, on the front of your dive suit, you're pretty open. You have a few things there, but it's not bad. But behind you, you have a tank. You have hoses, and you have clips, and all kinds of things. And periodically, the kelp grabs the tank. And your heart rate goes up. Your breathing gets fast and deep. You start to use a lot of oxygen. And you feel like a fly in a spider's web. It's exactly like tabletops. Scuba diving is a lot of fun, and I actually think that scuba diving and Toastmasters have a lot in common. It takes a first step to get into it. We all remember that first time that we attended a Toastmasters meeting and someone said, "And you, Ms. Guest, would you like to introduce yourself?" And I relate that back to that little wading pool that I stepped into as a toddler and took my first step in my trek towards scuba diving. Along the way, we're comfortable or we're not comfortable. For some of us, the icebreaker's easy, and for some of us, it's pretty darn difficult. Being an area governor, piece of cake for some of us, and very challenging for others. There are these phases and steps that we go through, and I'm a big believer in requiring ourselves to take that next big step. And hold on to that thought, because in a few minutes I'll come back and talk more about personal steps. But for a couple of minutes, I want to talk about a big step that the organization is taking right now. You may have heard of something called the Revitalized Education Program. Anyone in the room? Do we have any learning masters here? Learning masters, yes. And, all right, and you. Well, the Revitalized Education Program is the result of a strategic initiative that began in 2010. I'm not going to keep it that boring for the rest of the couple of minutes. What we decided to do organizationally is take a look at how learning works in Toastmasters. What is it that we do? When someone asks you what Toastmasters is, you may say, well, we give some speeches, and somebody might evaluate, and then there's table topics, and then we learn leadership too. But exactly how does all that work? How do we become better communicators? How do we become better leaders? So we analyzed it from the top down, working through every single Toastmasters experience that's available to each member. And we looked at the attributes, the skills, and the competencies that we pick up. And then we looked at ourselves a little bit more deeply and said, how do we learn these? What is the learning mechanism that we each go through? as we learn, say, to be more confident in interpersonal communication or more skilled at being a leader? And then what is the educational foundation behind this? Is there actually educational material that supports this particular learning concept? And we found a lot of gaps. Much in Toastmasters is learned through tribal knowledge. And that creates a massive degree of inconsistency, both in the learning experience and in the environment. And while uniqueness and culture play a huge part in the Toastmasters environment and culture in each of our clubs, those can be detriments when we look at the educational experience that members go through. So what if we could say, instead of we give some speeches and table topics and evaluations, what if we could say, in Toastmasters, we learn how to build interpersonal communication skills, self-confidence, public speaking skills, leading and managing, and strategic leadership. Do we do that now? Yeah, we do. But we don't say it that way. That's not the way that we were built. Toastmasters was built periodically from the ground up. The first speeches were given. Ultimately, someone wrote it down, how this was supposed to work. Dr. Smedley didn't want to do that. He didn't believe in manuals. But finally, that came about. There was basic training. There was beyond basic training. In the 80s, the advanced manuals came around. We dropped the first level CTM from 15 speeches to 10 speeches. Wow. And the 15 speech people said, how can you learn anything in 10 speeches? Same thing happened with the advanced manuals. Really, it's not the point of the length of time that it takes to learn. It's what your individual learning journey is. We all come in at a different place, and we all exit at a different place. We come in with certain types of skills, and we come in lacking certain types of skills. And imagine a Toastmasters world where when a new member comes in, they go through a self-evaluation process. And based on that self-evaluation process, a specific learning journey for them is mapped out. A journey that is customized for them and isn't the same exact thing that everyone else is doing. Imagine being able to customize and personalize your journey before the 10 speeches. Being able to work on something that you would really like to work on and build skills that you're lacking. That's the program that we're building right now. We're doing it in cooperation with our team at World Headquarters, a vendor who's helping us, and hundreds of Toastmasters volunteers worldwide. There are nearly 300 learning masters all around the world who right now are going to Toastmasters Club meetings, observing the learning environment, providing feedback to us, and they're the ones who are going to get the first peek at this new type of learning in Toastmasters. Outside of that group, there's a group called the Ambassadors. Each district has a chief ambassador. If there's a chief ambassador in the audience, will she please rise? Stephanie Scott. Now, Stephanie and a team of ambassadors from your district will, when this program is ready, carry it out to all of the clubs and inform the clubs about what it is, how it works, and how they're going to use it. That will take place somewhere in 2014. My commitment to this project is that it be done exceptionally well, and we're not going to release it to the membership until it's fabulous. So please don't try and hold me to a date, because I'm not going to give you one. Imagine a world where if you want to use a typical Toastmasters printed manual, you can do that. But imagine if you'd rather do it on your iPad or your Android tablet, you can do that too. If you want to do an evaluation through your smartphone for someone, you can do that. If you want to just take a picture of the evaluation and store it in the records online, you can do that. Imagine being able to go back and look at your entire archive of Toastmasters history online instead of needing to keep those binders that somebody said for a very long time. And imagine club leaders being able to schedule all of this and maintain all of this online through a system that's customized for your club. Add on top of that a community, an online community where within your club you can communicate with each other. You can send messages back and forth, you can post videos, you can post photos, you can share them within your club environment, and you can also share them out to your favorite social media. And imagine that that type of community exists At the area level, for every area in the world, area governors, how does that sound? Mary was talking earlier about something that she was lacking, and I thought, coming soon, in the next 6 months, area governors, you'll have a tool where you can share information about upcoming events and other goings-on in your area online that will trickle down to all the members of all of your clubs. District leaders will be able to do the same thing at the district level, and we'll be able to do the same thing at the global level. So many, many things upcoming in the Toastmaster future related to the education program and related to the use of technology. But again, for those who want it, if you don't want to use it, you're not comfortable using it, use paper, and that's fine. But tomorrow's Toastmasters, my kids, who are 22 and 20 and 18, they don't want paper. They don't even want to use a laptop. If they can't do it on their phone, they don't want to do it. And we've all seen that. We're experiencing it in the workplace, we're experiencing it in our homes, and we're experiencing it around the dinner table. As they text their brother or sister who's right across the table. So what will your next step be? How will you take this program and become a part of it? We'll have a big overlap, so if you're working through the old program, you can continue to do that over time. We'll have a translation table, so if you've made progress through the older existing program, you'll be able to jump into the new one and figure out how it works, even though I tell you it will be dramatically different. What we won't change is how club meetings work. It will look the same. There will be speeches and evaluations and table topics and all those things that are so effective. The uniqueness of Toastmasters is the experiential learning part at the club level. You're just building a much stronger educational structure around it. Something that organizationally we've never done in 90 years, and quite frankly, it's about time to be doing it. One of the bigger challenges of scuba diving at night is the mental leap to step off the back of a boat into an ink black ocean and know that there's something down there, things that you want to go chase, and there just might be some things that you don't want to chase. But you take that leap of faith because you're prepared. You've been trained, you've been certified, and your buddy has checked out your tank, your gear, there are no air leaks, and you're ready to go. In Toastmasters, you've been trained, you've had the experience, you've received the certificate, your mentor has helped you along the way, and you're ready to take that next big step. Now, how many of you in the organization have been drawn into club leadership? Please raise your hand. How many into area, division, or district level leadership? How many into international level leadership? A few of those. And along the way, you probably felt at some point that you weren't ready to take that next big leap, and someone might have come up behind you and helped you to get you there, and to convince you that you needed to take that. Well, in Toastmasters, we're all great friends. We have a good time. It's been a fabulous conference, such friendly people with each other and with me, and that's the way Toastmasters are around the world. But I want you to think about the next big step, the leap of faith that you need to take outside of Toastmasters. Because you're in your comfort zone in here, for now anyway. There are probably more challenges for you. But you've been prepared to do something bigger and better in a place that you haven't thought of yet, or perhaps don't believe you can do yet, outside of Toastmasters. And that's where the real benefit comes. You see, the Toastmasters program is not solely designed to help you progress within the organization. It was created to help you progress without the organization. And I'll challenge you tonight to take that next big step, whatever it may be, to try for that promotion that you should get, to leave your job and go to a different one, to get the next job if you're between jobs, to get elected to the school board, to get elected to city council, to talk to that neighbor who you really need to talk to down the street. Something that you're afraid to do. Will you do that? Will you accept that challenge? All right. I appreciate the wonderful hospitality that you've given to me and to Laura and others. Your district leadership team is fabulous, and I think it's kind of amazing that you remember that we had that little chat. And I was actually kind of amazed at the time that I remembered these two guys' names. And I think it's funny that he said that I did this because I do that a lot. But you have fabulous leaders in your district, and I can't recognize all of them tonight, but I do want to recognize one who represents each of you. Did you hear me drop that box? All right. So Steve. So with appreciation to District 13 for being such fabulous hosts, but most of all, to Steve and the team and all of you for being fabulous Toastmasters and doing what you need to do to make sure that the member experience that each of our members is having is as fantastic as it possibly can be. Thanks very much.